There's no music if you have no body to play it with, so take care of your body first.
You getting into the gym and you lifting weights and working on muscles it's physical therapy for the benefit of your playing.
The truth is, nothing works like just taking care of the simple stuff. Diet, exercise, and sleep. Take care of that and you'll be fine.
Join us as two musicians and fitness coaches discuss strength, wellness, and fitness in relation to musicians, artists, and performance. Hello, and welcome back to the Tuned and Strong podcast. This is Dr. Jen Cabas-May of Tuned and Toned Performance.
And this over here is Angela McHouston of Music Strong.
And today we are joined by a very special guest, Francesca Leo. Francesca, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Outstanding. So for those of you who don't know, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what your business is and your journey, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm primarily a flutist. I've gotten 2 degrees in music performance. So during my undergraduate degree, I suffered a pretty severe performance-related injury. Was first diagnosed with tendonitis in my forearms, and then it later had spread to my left shoulder, which has since turned into tendinosis. So I first experienced pain from playing my flute when I was 16 years old. So it's been about 10 years that I've been dealing with it on and off, which is a really long time. So at the time that I was experiencing it, I didn't really know that it was a thing that you could get injured from playing an instrument, because I had just never heard anyone talking about it. So I kind of was a little bit ashamed about it at first. I did bring it up to, my doctor, who gave me the first diagnosis of tendonitis. But then my only option at that point was I was told that I can either stop playing or just take ibuprofen when it hurts, which I look back on that advice and it makes me sad to this day.
As it should.
Yeah. So I kind of just kept playing. I really wanted to major in music. So I just kept playing through the pain because I just at that point didn't know any other option, and wasn't ready to make the changes that I really needed to heal my body, because I was worried that it would set me back with auditions and things. And so when I entered college and undergrad, my pain started getting really severe, to the point where I really couldn't play for more than 5 minutes at a time without experiencing shooting really severe pain. And at that point, I kind of had a wake-up call, and I was like, I really need to figure out what's going on. Otherwise, this might be a career-ending injury. I don't want that to happen. I want to keep playing. And it's concerning the level of pain that I'm having from playing my instrument. And so that's when I started opening up to people a little bit, telling my teacher, really going to see a physical therapist, and started Alexander technique lessons. And at that same time, when I was kind of sitting more with my diagnosis, learning more about it, and working with physical therapists and other professionals, that was the time that I had to choose a topic to research for my honors thesis in undergrad. So I ended up pursuing a research study titled The Prevalence of Performance-Related Injuries and the Stress Connection in Collegiate Musicians. And so I went through the whole research process with my mentor, and we gathered the data for that. And the results were that 88% of participants suffered at least some form of performance-related pain throughout their career. And also there was a positive correlation between elevated stress levels and pain severity as well. So that finding was really fascinating to me. There are other studies that are available that support similar, even higher statistics related to the prevalence of performance-related injuries. But for me, that really resonated, because I just never heard anyone else talking about it. But to find out that so many other people were struggling with it and kind of just staying silent made me really sad.
Yeah.
That's what motivated me to create my website, Playing Without Pain, which is, it is a resource database that kind of houses all available performing arts health resources, information on specialists, and articles, scholarly articles, research that's published, books, everything like that, kind of just like a one-stop shop to go if you're experiencing an injury and you're kind of wanting to learn a little bit more about it, to start pointing folks towards the right direction and how to find treatment and just knowing that they're not alone. So from that, I did a master's degree in music, took a year off during the pandemic, was freelancing with arts administration, and now I'm in an MBA program. So kind of a 180 switch. But I'm hoping to pursue more work in the nonprofit industry and hopefully create my own at some point to advocate for the inclusion of performing arts health education in music programs. So that's my story.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah. We've been talking about this a lot.
a lot. And I've been wondering about what you were going to do with your MBA. So to hear that was your goal, it's like, okay, we've heard all the studies about a jillion times about how many musicians are injured.
Yeah.
We don't need any more studies. What are we doing about it? Exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of just a realization I had within the past few years, like, wow, I'm really passionate about this. And again, I just wanted to take action. So I've been involved with, the National Flute Association Performance Healthcare Committee, which Angela is the current chair of, and Performing Arts Medicine Association, just trying to contribute towards the projects that are going on there, and also presenting on my research, presenting on other things that I've worked on as well. So it's been exciting.
Yeah, and you've been pretty active with the presentation stuff. Are you doing something with somebody in Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, I'm the chair of the wellness committee for the Puerto Rico Flute Symposium. So the last 2 years have been virtual because of the pandemic. We have hopes that it'll be in person this summer in Puerto Rico. So I'm excited about the possibility of going there. So we're bringing a few wellness guests, but mostly members of the committee are going to be presenting. So we're excited and hopeful that it will happen as planned.
What kind of things does the symposium cover for anybody who doesn't know?
Sure.
Jen has a kitty.
Oh, so cute. Yeah, so the Puerto Rico Flute Symposium was founded actually by a few of my friends, and they saw a great need to bring the level of symposiums that were happening in the United States to Puerto Rico, since there wasn't as much access, especially with the in-person component. That's their main goal, is to be able to reach that audience in Puerto Rico that's not able to get over to the United States for all the other festivals. So they are really awesome. They are doing as much to be as inclusive as possible. So they're covering a lot of the like the housing and the foods for the guest artists and everything. And their tuition rates are as low as possible to just make it really accessible for people to be able to attend. So they feature a lot of Latin American artists, and primarily for the flute, and then for the wellness committee as well. So I've been working with Felipe, who is an Alexander Technique professor. Oh, the kitty's so cute.
He's so needy.
Yeah, so
Sorry, he's being very needy.
This is Jen's cat Heimdall.
Yeah. Yep. He's being a ham today. So. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
We don't mind kitties.
And in the area, trying to contribute towards building a program there. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens in person, what the turnout's going to be. I'm optimistic about it.
Right on. So what is the wellness committee doing, like when in relation to that? So what are your focuses?
During the pandemic, we had what was that?
I said, is that foci? Is that the correct plural of focuses?
I think that was fine. Made sense.
Okay. Anyway.
During the pandemic, we started weekly wellness sessions for musicians. So it was kind of just like 15 minutes every Sunday to come join us on Zoom, reset, and we would bring on some guests sometimes, but also just present on a variety of different wellness related topics. So during the pandemic, I pursued a meditation instructor certification, and my colleague Jessica Kebby did as well. So we were co-hosting that. We did a couple like Zoom meditation sessions. She has had a lot of mindfulness training. So we've done a lot of mindfulness work with those. Our intention was for it to kind of just be like a Sunday reset and check-in for everyone. So we've been taking a break from that for a little bit. We got a little busy, you know how that goes. But we're hoping to resume it again during the symposium. And our other goals have just been connecting with wellness professionals that are based in Latin America and building our relationships with them. Very cool. Very cool. Jen, sorry, didn't mean to bowl you over with all of that. I got distracted by your kitty.
No, it's all right. It's I was just trying to keep muted because he was being a little bit fussy. Like, let's not ruin the recording.
All good. All good. So yeah, so like to go from that, I mean, you've had quite the experience. And I think that most of our listeners have had somewhat of a similar experience with having an injury, not understanding that other people have injuries, especially at 16. I know my first injury was at 16 or 17, and I had no resources. Yeah. I didn't know what to do.
Yep.
It wasn't talked about. And so I just went to like the bone and joint clinic and asked them. They said, "Oh, you've got tendonitis. You should quit playing." I'm like, "I have auditions for honor band coming up. That's not an option." Well, you got to rest for a while. I'm like, rest? What, oh, and here, we're going to send you to physical therapy. And if it doesn't get better, we'll give you a cortisone shot. And I was like, a shot? At 16, nobody wants needles. Like, oh, shot's like the worst thing in you don't care what it is. Nobody wants a shot of anything. Yeah. So, yeah. And so I was like, okay, fine, I'll do the PT. And of course it got better. Plus my playing level went down from 8 hours a day, every day to, something more manageable, like a couple hours a day. But it's not uncommon. What I'm seeing is that it's not uncommon for younger players to start developing these injuries, and they're not being prepared. No, not at all. That. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of really disturbing that if you look at the research from when they first started researching the prevalence of injuries up until now, which has been several decades, the numbers have not changed, which is really disturbing. And it kind of just goes to show like that these issues are just continuing to repeat themselves. It's like cyclical, and it's because I think what you said, like the resources just haven't been available, and people aren't really realizing the contributing factors until now, which is very much the notion that we are supposed to be practicing 24/7, which is what a lot of us get taught at a very early age. And it's not sustainable. And it's just not like, it's not actually like practical. Like you can get really good work done in a short amount of time, but a lot of us are just also not taught how to practice efficiently. And that's another big issue. I know the saying that always resonates with me that has kind of just been playing in the back of my head that I've been working to overcome is like, if you're not practicing, someone else is. And someone else is.
And I'm sure other listeners, or maybe you guys have also heard that before. And I hate it. I hate it so much. But yeah, that was a saying that really stuck with me for a long time. And that was a big reason why I had a really hard time taking breaks when I needed to. And like just not practicing 24/7 and burning myself out it was hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's not just if you're not practicing, somebody else is, right? There's other ways that but there's a lot of them out there that people challenge you. And then it just goes back to, oh, well, you're hurt. So either it's your fault or you're doing something wrong, or the whole rice method, which I know, Angela, we talked about, I think it was last episode, which is so outdated. Like even the sports guys aren't using it anymore. Or like, here's some anti-inflammatories. Like,
somebody tell the military ibuprofen doesn't solve everything. Will you please tell the army that's not how this works? They're stuck in the ibuprofen era. Oh yeah. No. That's exactly it. I mean, it's anyway, going back to that, we're not given the tools. And we interviewed Kelly Malno Wilson last week, and I love her too. And she really hit on something. She's like, why is this a problem? It's like, well, we are actually athletes. We have a longer career than athletes do, but we move the same amount of hours. We do repetitive things like they do. just because you're not running doesn't mean you're not an athlete.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we have this high prevalence of repetitive use syndrome that we have, these injuries that we have can be prevented, but we're not given any tools. And I say any tools lightly because some people get Alexander technique, some people get Feldenkrais, some people get body mapping, but on the whole, they're still seen as novelties. These have been around for decades. They're not novel. The body is not like, are like music schools steeped in like Greek mythology at this point? Like, come on, like, let's get up to the present day. Like, come on. Yeah. Why are we still promoting this fact of like, okay, if you're not practicing, someone else is. So,
yeah.
And your point is, okay, maybe they shouldn't be practicing.
Yeah.
Okay. More doesn't equal better. How many times are people ruined by thinking more is better? Mm-hmm. It's not always better. Just putting in time is useless. Putting in efficient time is worth something.
Yeah, absolutely.
When are we taught that though? It's about, oh, you should be practicing 4 hours a day. Well, says who?
I think that is, I've seen positive trends, just looking at like the kinds of events that are programmed in conferences lately and presentations at symposiums and things like that. And just the conversations people are having. I think a lot of people want to like get more involved in wellness work, but just really don't know what to do. And a lot of the time people are afraid of messing up their students or saying the wrong thing. So I think a lot of the time, like they just don't want to touch it, but like they want to be involved, but they also don't want to like say the wrong thing. So I think it's just like, there just needs to be more availability for like, training courses for music educators or like just giving them some of the basics or references for their students to and things like that. Like PAMA has, I don't know if you've ever taken a PAMA course, but they have like the essentials of performing arts medicine for music educators. So I took that a couple summers ago and that was really helpful. And I really think more people should take it. It's available online now, but yeah, I thought like things like that are really useful and really needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I've got a course that is doing the same. I'm calling it job security, but it's like it's basically the same thing. Austin Pantzer also has the same thing. And we interviewed him a while back. He's got another course. So like these resources are out there. We can't just expect them for free though, because our degrees weren't free. Mm-hmm. Education doesn't have to be free. But there are these resources, which is super exciting that this is starting to come out.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. There's lots of resources available and I hope that more people become aware of them because I think it's like what people are looking for, but don't necessarily know it yet,
Yeah.
Yeah. I do see a positive trend, but I just, I think it's from a lack of knowing knowing what to say or knowing how to say it, things like that. Yeah. But also I think a lot of people still just, if they haven't had a personal experience with it, it's hard for them to relate.
Yeah, and that's true. So have you had any experiences, well, with your website as you are, getting all of these different resources, is there anything that's coming up more and more that you've been surprised with or that people have reached out and said, hey, do you have this? Mm-hmm. Do you know anybody? I mean, anything like that?
Yeah, I've been really fascinated by how many like performance related issues are stemming back to things like traumatic experiences and like how strong the mind body connection is. That's been really interesting for me to research lately, and that kind of was sparked by the results of my study. But just knowing that there are so many other components that can also contribute to injury severity, and like obviously it doesn't cause injury, but it has the potential to like worsen it if you're in a state of constant activation, things like that. I'm sure that you both can explain that definitely in a more nuanced way than I can, but yeah, it's just so interesting how many other components that I didn't think about when I was initially working on my injury can also come into effect. But I'd say that trauma has been a big topic in general lately throughout like a bunch of industries. And I have been curious to learn more about its intersection with music and some, more trauma-informed resources and education practices for musicians.
So when you say trauma,
Mhm.
are you saying that's related to performance anxiety or just performance related issues in general that you're seeing?
I'd say more like traumatic experiences. There's a high prevalence of, abuse in every industry, but specifically in music performance, the pressure is really high. I think we've all had instances with, past maybe mentors, band directors, where it's just been a very traumatic experience and it's kind of hard to get out of that sometimes. I know I have. So I think those isolated experiences, but especially if they happen repeatedly, can really affect your nervous system and the way that you function over time, which can contribute to performance anxiety. So everything's really interrelated. It's really fascinating to me.
Right. Sorry, Jen, I feel like I'm like taking over the whole conversation.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Everything jump in. What's funny? Go ahead.
It's good because it ties into I don't think the episode's out yet. This is where you were going. I don't think the episode's out yet, but we just did one on did we end up titling it Abusive Teachers?
Toxic Teachers.
Toxic Teachers. Yes, we did. So
we did. We went that way.
Yeah, we just did an episode on that, just the two of us, and yeah, so many things, and especially I don't think I talked about this in that recording, but when I was coming back from my injury, I actually ended up being very lucky with a couple key support people. It didn't mess me up as bad as it could have, but if you have an injury as a musician, you're dealing with one of those band directors, let's say, and who's can be problematic. I'm not going to say problematic because they really weren't, but they can be.
Yeah.
And even if it's just an issue of, can you actually get through the concert?
Mm-hmm.
Even if you can, and like you've been cleared to, and everything's going fine, but having that question come up and having it come up more than once, like, yeah, I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
I was lucky, but I can see that being a big problem for some people with anxiety. And like we said, how many of us have injuries and
who wants their ability questioned and
Right.
not given any resources to deal with it, but just can you do this?
Yeah,
right. Well, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. The first thing people ask me when they find out I was injured is, well, what can you do now?
Yeah.
All the things, like better than I used to could. Why is this a question? Why is this your first question? Not what happened, not how did you get out of it, but what can you do now?
Or are you okay?
Right. Like it's a permanent thing.
Yeah. So just to kind of expound on that, I'm sorry, I'm a little foggy headed again today.
I totally agree. It's just been really, really fascinating to me. And I've been seeing like a lot more studies, not just in the arts, but in other fields coming up about that kind of research. And so I've just been really drawn to it. And that's what I've been interested in learning more about lately. But I think a lot of people, based on like some messages I've gotten and things like that, have a lot of traumatic experiences within the arts and within studying the arts, and it just makes me sad.
I understand. I think we talked about this a little bit with Lee as well, about the maybe in an indirect way, but actually no, it was with Mark. So we talked with my colleague Mark Wallace, who has focal dystonia of the embouchure, and he can trace it back, the beginnings of it, to he had a teacher who hyperfixated on his embouchure and how it looked. Forget how he sounded. Well, your embouchure looks weird. It should look like this.
Oh no.
Basically ruins him. And now he has focal dystonia.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, I was in college with him and I remember when suddenly Mark couldn't play and then Mark dropped out or something like that. I mean, we're like, what? Mark was great. Where'd Mark go? What happened? And then our teacher ended up having it and then he retired. I don't think he wanted to retire, but he had focal dystonia, and that it's like a death sentence is what it's told, because we're not given these resources. It's like, let's sweep this under the rug. Like, let's just pretend you have nerve damage or something. No, let's actually focus on these issues and talk about what they are. And why don't we not just wait until they're a problem? Why don't we just talk about them? Why don't we educate ourselves on these things that, like, if you hold your instrument in a certain way for hours a day, times decades, yeah, something is going to happen. I mean, your body's not meant to be in a static position, especially if you play a stick of some sort, whether it's a metal flute stick or a, clarinet stick or a trumpet stick. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, we put it simplistically, it kind of makes sense. We're holding ourselves in these positions, right? And we just expect our bodies to be able to do that for hours and hours and hours, like hundreds of thousands of hours. Yeah. But we're not given it. And then we're told we're not very good when we can't do that. You don't tell a running back or a quarterback or, a pitcher that they're not very good if something happens. They're just like, oh no, okay, he's going to go get taken care of. We hope he gets better soon. It's not like made a big deal out of, but the care is there. There's no stigma attached. They get taken care of. They get better and they come back out. Musicians is like, oh, your career's over. That's you. Like, no, this is not how this works.
You have so much to learn from sports medicine. And I know that you've already picked up on that and have been incorporating that into your work. But I just think it's so important for others who are interested in pursuing this field. Like, there's a lot we can learn. Like, they are so much more progressive, more well-funded, more well-researched. It's just like, there's a lot of crossover that we can influence from. Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to see, okay, so every sport I know of has some type of athletic trainer or coach or both on staff.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be great to see every major orchestra and every recording studio have somebody on call or on staff?
For sure.
Are we any different? I think we should.
I think you should go for it.
Me? There's only one of me. I can do one or two or three, but that's it.
Start with one, see what happens,
Exactly. That's why I don't see any reason why the major orchestras can't have, musician care is a team wellness approach, just like athletes have a wellness approach. It's not like you just see the trainer. No. You probably go see a PT, you see a massage therapist, you see a blah, 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 right?
It's a team effort. Yeah. That's what saved me, honestly. It really did. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about your story and how you came out of the injury that you have and like how you've dealt with it.
Yeah. So I got it to a manageable point, and I say manageable because I'm still working on healing it. It's going to take a very long time as long as I continue playing, and I've made a lot of progress, which is great, but there's still a lot of things that I'm also unlearning, like related to actively playing my flute that are injury causing, and I'm still figuring that out. So it's been a long process, but initially the combination of physical therapy and Alexander technique, and I was also swimming a lot at that point, which swimming was great for me at the time. So I was doing a combination of those three things, practicing less. Love the cat appearance again.
If you guys are not watching this and you're only listening to this, Jen has a cat who's like crawling up her body.
I keep trying to redirect him too. He's just
cats do what they do.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. He's so needy today.
Sorry, Francesca.
My day. It's okay. Yeah, but the combination of those three things at the time was helpful, in addition to starting to reduce my practice time and learning how to practice more efficiently, and reducing the amount of things that I was trying to do, because I was always, and I still catch myself trying to do this, I was always trying to do like a million things at once, do all the competitions, do all the auditions, like learning so much repertoire past what was required of me. So I really had to cut back on that when I was actively in treatment for my injury. So I got it to a manageable point by the end of undergrad. When I started grad school, I continued. I found a physical therapist in New York. I actually was working with a body tuning therapist. So is Dr. Shmuel Tatz. He worked with musicians in the New York Philharmonic and things like that. So they incorporated physical therapy with Alexander technique and kind of more of the somatic practices. And it was really interesting. It helped a lot. it was recommended to me actually by my physical therapist from back home. She found one that worked with musicians. She was like, you should try this. So it was great. I was recommended chiropractic care, so I did that for a little bit. So I was consistently in treatment while I was in grad school, but the expectations got a lot higher. The pressure got a lot more intense. And so I noticed I was getting some flare-ups even with the treatment that I was actively receiving. So that was kind of scary. And every time a flare-up happened, I would always just go back to that mindset, like, oh my gosh, what if this is the time that like my career is going to end? Like how much more can I take before I like actually have to consider like not pursuing performance, which is such a hard thing to grapple with. So, but I was at least a little bit more aware of it at this point, communicated with my teacher that I had an injury in the past. Luckily, she was really, really supportive of it. So that was definitely nice. But I graduated during the pandemic. I continued to really just enter whatever I could, which I look back and I'm like, why did I do that? Why didn't I just take a break? Like everyone else in the world, like no one was playing. And I was like, why was I just still going 100 miles ahead when I really needed to just like rest for my shoulder? So I was still, and then my flare up got like really bad after that. And I think it was also because of, I was practicing a lot more, wasn't in classes really because everything was canceled or on Zoom. And so at that point, I was really just like, I need to figure this out. Like, I can't keep pushing my body through this pain. So I went to another doctor and got an MRI. They said it was tendinosis of the left supraspinatus muscle. So I started, I did body mapping training during that time too. So I was working with a couple teachers as an affiliate, and now I'm a trainee with them. So that studying that was really helpful at the time. Took several months off, was working actively with a physical therapist again, and also switched flutes. That was huge. Angela and I had done a study on this, like just kind of looking at the differences of weights of flutes and how that might impact playing and playing related injuries. For me, it was a huge issue. My flute was really heavy. So I also switched to a much lighter flute now. And I did weigh the difference. It was like almost a 12-ounce difference. So it was significant. So that helped. And then taking some of the pressure off myself, not trying to do a ton. And yeah, I've been feeling really good. I've been playing a decent amount lately. I've been doing, keeping up with my strength training, doing spin classes, which I love. And
right?
Staying active, and my shoulder's been feeling a lot better. So it's still not totally healed. I don't honestly know if it will ever be totally healed as long as I'm still playing, but it's so much better than it used to be. Yeah. So
you mentioned
tendinosis.
Right. Tendinosis. That can definitely heal. Any kind of soft tissue injury can heal. That's why we call it soft.
All right.
Yeah. There's some hope there. But yeah, there were a couple things that you mentioned that I wanted to go back to in the last one. I just lost it. But you mentioned pushing through, when the pandemic started and you had, I know what it was. Okay. So when you said you cut back on your playing time, and after you had just said, you felt like if no one's if you're not practicing, someone else's, did that affect you, a little bit, as in like, do you feel like, okay, so you cut back on your practice time. Does that make you feel less of a musician? Because I know that's what other people are thinking, like, oh, if I'm not practicing, someone else is, and I must not be very good. And there are so many other ways to practice. And I mean, has your musicianship like drastically decreased or anything?
It's funny. I've definitely grappled with a lot of those feelings, like within the past year, especially. I definitely have days where I feel very anxious that I'm not practicing. So sometimes if it gets really bad, I'll just pick up my flute for 5 minutes, play something that I like playing, and then put it away. And like sometimes that helps a little bit. But yeah, definitely experienced that feeling of like, oh my gosh, like I always need to be practicing. So like some days it's worse than others. But honestly, I feel that my musicianship has gotten way better now that I'm not playing for 8 hours a day anymore. Because I've been able to be more intentional about like how I want things to sound. And taking breaks for me was really helpful, and just allowing my mind a chance to like digest the information from practicing. Then when I come back to it, I'm like, oh, this passage I was struggling with, I actually think I know of a way to practice it that will make it easier and more comfortable. And then so I'll try it, and it usually works. So like the breaks really help so much. And like I just never knew that until very recently, which I think is the experience of most people that study music.
It's like being in the gym. You can't do bicep curls every day and expect your biceps to grow.
Yeah.
When you tear your muscles down, you create these microscopic tears right in the muscles. They have to repair when you rest. They don't grow in the gym, they grow when you're out. So it's the same with your musicianship. Your brain has to have that time to assimilate everything. Like imagine if you didn't sleep, how recovered would you be?
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, it's just like taking the time, like you need sleep, you need rest. Like, yeah, it's really mind blowing, but also a very good realization to have. And then with the free time that I've freed up, because I'm not practicing 8 hours a day, I've been able to like actually have hobbies. Like it should be normal, but it was very normal for a long time. Yeah.
What are your hobbies?
I love doing crossword puzzles. I like really do. Which is super nerdy, but it's okay. I love going on like walks, which is like, again, sounds normal, but like something that I just never carved out the time to do. Yeah. Like I love exercising, and a lot, like I used to kind of just do it because I felt like I needed to, but now I'm like, oh, it makes me feel really good. It gives myself a mental break too. It relieves some stress, some anxiety. So it's like, yeah, I'd say like taking long walks, like going to, a spin class, like stuff like that. It's just like stuff that I never thought I could do because I didn't have time, but now I do, and it's great. Yeah.
That's so
funny how that happens. I'm a musician. What are your hobbies?
Oh my gosh.
Playing music.
Like
whenever listening to music.
Listening to music.
Practicing. Watching Netflix. Like
right.
Going to the music library count.
Right. Yeah.
It's true.
So because I know what time it is, I'm going to suggest we take a quick break. And when we come back, I actually have a question for you. So this will be fun.
Be right back after this.
Hey musicians, did you know that up to 90% of musicians will experience playing-related pain or injury over the course of their career? How many hushed conversations have you heard about a lingering, quote, shoulder pain or a weird tingling in your fingers? Or maybe low back pain or a crampy weakness, or maybe you or your colleague just says, I just have to get through the gig. And you watch them pop Advil like candy, maybe flush it down with whiskey. How many times have we seen something like this? So many, right? Well, it's time we start talking about our struggles, our pain, our frustrations in a private space where we don't just complain and mobilize and blindly stretch, but we learn how to strengthen our muscles, our career successes, and build each other up. I've got a brand new program that combines all of these things, and I want you to be a part of it. It's a community, not a workout. It's a community with group coaching and great content that in 12 weeks will have you understanding more about your body, what you need, and how you work so you can avoid that career-threatening injury. The 3 things that musicians don't want. We don't want to be injured. We don't want to have a lack of stamina. And we don't want to be clueless. AKA, when you hurt, who do you go see? Just a, quote, doctor? Well, this program addresses all of those things. You're going to walk away with an immense knowledge of who to see. You're going to be empowered because you're going to know what to do should you ever get injured, or should you have a colleague that gets injured. You will be able to actually offer appropriate advice. You're also going to learn about the body and the anatomy as it relates to playing your instrument and your own anatomy. And then you're going to learn how to build not just your strength and endurance, but you're going to learn how to design your own corrective exercise program. So I hope you will join me in this new program. It's called the Music Strong Pilot Program, Job Security for Musicians.
Hey, welcome back to the Tuned and Strong podcast. We are interviewing Francesca Leo, and Jen actually had some questions that she wanted to propose. So here we go.
I did. And this one is actually based on, dealing with my students or students who approach me, or just people in the community who approach me who are going through an injury. They like talking to me, and it's because I openly discuss this sort of thing, and I've been through it before, but it seems like there can be a barrier because I'm so far on the other side of the injury. It's not fresh for me anymore. And I'm pretty confident with my current routine. But the people who are in it, who are coming to me, even though I see it as here's your steps, here's how you get it done, and it's organized. There's a lot of sense of just being super overwhelmed. Like there's too many things to do. There's not enough time in the day to do it. And you're so enthusiastic about this stuff that I know it came out very rapid fire. And so I'm just putting myself in their shoes and going, okay, well, if I was in these students' shoes who are overwhelmed by what I tell them, which is, if you can't figure out what you need to be doing and how to organize it, then you need a third party's help. They're that frazzled that they're like, well, but no, help is too much. I'm like, help is what you need, hon.
Team
So
approach.
if they were listening to all the things that you've been through, because you've been in it long enough that you've experienced, like we have too, like all the different things, it might seem like, well, how do you have time to do anything? And like, I don't understand. You're just doing all the stuff just so you can play, and like, what does that mean? So I was hoping that you could maybe break down for us kind of what your actual day or week is like, and how it's organized, and how you stay sane.
No, that's a great point, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. I first of all want to say how lucky your students are to have someone like you. Oh my gosh, if there was someone to talk to that outlined an organized plan of like what I could do to like help myself feel better at that time, oh my gosh, that would have been a life changer. So you are just I just know that you are such a great presence in their lives, and I wish I had someone like you. So yeah, I just wanted to say that first. But for me, it was a lot of trial and error, because I just did not have a set of references at all from like anyone that I knew that was close to me that had been through something like this. And some of the people I did know that experienced injuries just ended up stopping, which is really common and unfortunately really heartbreaking too. So I just really didn't have a point of reference at first when I started. So I totally understand the overwhelmed feeling. One of the open-ended responses from the study I did was kind of just asking the participants to outline like their feelings towards being in school and dealing with pain if they were experiencing it. One of them was just exactly what you said, feeling so overwhelmed to do so much work to take care of yourself just to be able to keep playing. And also juggling homework assignments and like probably part-time jobs and stuff like that. It's like a lot, and injury treatment can sometimes feel like it's a full-time job sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a lot to juggle all at once. When I was first kind of going through the treatment process, I was going to physical therapy twice a week at first, which later was reduced to once a week once I started making some progress. Only went to Alexander technique lessons once a week, once every 2 weeks. So it really wasn't like a bunch of things every single week. When I was in grad school, like I would go to body tuning appointments once or twice a week, which took some travel time. So that was a bit hard to fit into my schedule. But that was really it. And then just maintaining a consistent exercise routine that worked for me. When I was actively in treatment this past year, I was able to stop playing for a couple months. I know that some people are in the situation where their income depends on it. So it's really depending on like what the situation you're in. I was able to take time off. I was going to physical therapy only twice a week again. So I've never really gone more than that. And when I started body mapping lessons, it was once a week, once every 2 weeks. So it wasn't as much all at once as I kind of initially made it seem. So I'm glad that you brought that up because it definitely probably sounded like it. But for me, I kind of just got really interested in like learning everything that I could about it. I'm really passionate about it. So I ended up just kind of diving into like all the research and stuff like that. And because it's part of my work moving forward. So I would say my commitment level was higher than it needed to be. But in general, it's like, I think it's more of a, and feel free to chime in on this, but I think it's more of a like consistent progress type thing. And also just not putting so much pressure on yourself, because it can easily fall into the same thing as the, oh, I'm not practicing all the time, so I can't make it to where, oh, I'm not always focusing on my injury progress, so it's never going to heal. I feel like there's a lot of black and white thinking that's prevalent in the industry. And I feel like I've fallen into that trap myself. So I understand how challenging it can be.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like, and I'm extrapolating here. It sounds to me like maybe you're putting in currently about 4 hours into like maintenance.
Yeah, for me, maintenance looks like.
Well, I say maintenance, I mean maintenance towards improvement. Like, to be clear, sorry.
I think that's a great term for where I'm at right now. It's really just kind of like doing my strength training exercises, like 2 or 3 times a week for me. Now it's going to be different for everybody. And also just doing my cardio 2-3 times a week. And I really never do more than 45 minutes, just with what else I have going on right now. But it looks different for everyone. And I think you just have to find what works best for you and fits into your schedule and doesn't add stress, because that's not going to your injury at all.
Yeah. So it's really not an overwhelming amount of time, which I know Angela and I have said before.
Yeah.
Yeah. And finding what works for you. And we talked about this in the Healthy Habits series about, like finding we talked about basically your workout motivation. We were talking about this book, the No Sweat book, which is so key to finding like what works for you when you're looking for an exercise routine that you don't have to do something that's because somebody said you should do it. I mean, if you love spin class, my gosh, go to spin class.
Right.
I love riding bikes. I hate spin class. Put me out on the road for 6 hours. I am delighted. Put me in a room with sweaty people and I am like, I hate this. They're not the same. It's not.
Sure, they're not. They're not.
Not the same. And that's fine. But there's also something to think about when you're going through treatment. And just to speak from a surgery standpoint and a broken bone standpoint. These are not plane related injuries. I know when we were talking about, when you mentioned the flute weight article that we did, and that's coming out in the Flutist Quarterly issue, like one of our upcoming issues. So if you are part of the NFA, you're going to see that, and you can actually reference it on both of our websites. And you actually have the database on your website as well. So we'll put that in the show notes. But something that thinking about all of that, sorry, I went in too many directions at once, but the thinking of, I know what it was. You mentioned you were going through an injury when we did that. I was going through my 4th playing related injury at that time, which has been 2 years since that had happened. And I think I finally got a diagnosis about 4 months ago, an accurate diagnosis of double crush syndrome, which is where you have a nerve that is impinged in more than one space. The chiropractor that I highly respect, is a good friend of mine, said, quit playing and stop working out. It was the worst information I could have gotten. Everything got way worse when he said that. So as a hypermobile individual, that doesn't help. So, rest is not always the answer.
Yeah.
It can be the answer, but coming from that situation, like, having a lighter weight flute, like we tried all those different flutes, was actually, I felt like we were both in a really good situation to be able to try all the lighter weight and like find what was working, because both of us were dealing with playing related injuries. And what does the weight feel like? How does that change things? Right. But then transitioning into, and boy, has that blown up since we posted that. People are constantly, I don't know if they're sending it to you, but they're sending it to me like, hey, what's a good lighter weight? I'm going to have to quote downgrade my flute because it's
no, honey,
heavy to light.
I went from silver to gold and it was lighter.
Yeah, exactly. Just because it's heavy doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So where I am now, so I had that bicycle accident, I had screws put in my thumb to put it back together. And when they said, you're going to have surgery, I was like, and of course I had been cognizant for a few hours. It knocked me out and they're telling me this. I'm like, I have to, what? In my thumb? I play flute. This is, I'm like trying not to freak out. And I was like, oh, at least it's my right thumb, not my, key thumb. But I was like, what do you mean like have to? Is there like you can't just pull it back and tape it up? Like, I don't know. And then I realized, okay, so this is the thing. So you don't want to have to get to a situation where you have to have a surgical intervention. Yeah. And most of the stuff we deal with as musicians can be prevented before we get to this point. But if we're at this point, like where I am, I see a doctor once every couple of weeks at this point, and then I see a hand therapist once a week, and then I'm taking care of my own fitness for a few hours a week. But it's not something that you can just do sporadically. As what I'm hearing you saying, and what we have said, it's basically small things done consistently over time, which is what's important.
It's just like, practicing too. Like that's like the method that I've unlocked. It took me a long time to figure out consistency, intention, and just like celebrating the progress and like celebrating the small wins,
Yes. Every small win is a big win because we're so conditioned to ignore the wins and focus on the losses and like, what could I do to improve that? Well, you should celebrate the fact that you did something right.
Yeah.
We're not taught to really celebrate what's right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we just get into that other mindset. So, I don't know if you want to go down that path, but I have another thought from something she said earlier. You have anything that you want to? So there was something you said a little bit ago when the pandemic started 2 years ago this month, this week, I think, ish. Yeah. Everything shut down and we all kind of went, everything shut down. We all stayed at home. We didn't know what was going on. You are not the first musician I have heard that said, this is my time. I don't know what else to do. I don't have anything else to do. You said you pushed through. You didn't have a break. Mm-hmm. You just sat at home and practiced. And I can't tell you how many musicians have said, it's like they don't have any hobbies. I don't know what else to do. So I have all this time. So I am practicing 6 to 8 hours a day, every day. Yeah. So can you talk a little bit more about that mindset that kind of went into that period of time? Because I know we talked about it in earlier episodes, but like being removed from it now, it's kind of nice to go back and, people are still dealing with this.
And reflect on it for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for me, I think I was always used to kind of jam packing my schedule as much as possible. Just in general, like that's just how I'm wired. And, it's good in some ways, but not great in others. So, it's been something I'm working on, the work-life balance. But so a lot of people have the same experience. So I think for me, it was kind of more of like, oh, I have extra time now. I didn't have this time, even though everything was getting canceled. None of us really knew when it was going to start up again. So at the beginning, I think I was kind of just like wanting to quote unquote stay in shape, which I do the quotes because I'm like, that's not great. Yeah. But that was like kind of my mindset or what I thought was going to happen, which, I know that it doesn't work that way. But so I was just trying to like keep playing consistently. And then I was like, oh, well, competitions are still going on. Like they're going virtual, so I can enter them. And it was like something to work towards. And that's what I felt like I needed to do at that time. And I don't know if that was like self-imposed pressure. Some of it might have come from like, other people were doing it. So I was like, oh, might as well just try. But I also have noticed like over the past few years, like it's really hard for me to like rest, or like if I don't have anything to do, I feel anxious. And that's like a result of other mental health stuff. And I think a lot of people also feel that way. But for you,
100%.
filling up my schedule as much as possible because I didn't really want to experience those anxious feelings when I didn't have anything to do. So I've kind of since learned to just like, I just need to sit with it sometimes. And that's the only way that I'll be able to like balance my life a little bit more or a little bit less like work heavy and more like, like spending time with my family and like doing things I enjoy, which are really important. But yeah, I think a lot of it was like, one, I didn't know what else to do because I didn't really have any other hobbies. And two, I didn't like the feeling of not knowing what to do or uncertainty. And there was a lot of that during that time. And so I was kind of just trying to like numb it out by just focusing on playing, I guess.
That's a very key point. You said you wanted to numb it out. And think of how many people and how many ways people numbed the situation out, whether it was with booze, Netflix, practicing. People went on the home exercise binge during that time. Y'all remember this? We talked about it, and I think it was like episode like 4 or something, because home exercise stuff. Because you couldn't stop hearing like the push-up challenge or the squat challenge. Like, the pressure, right? The pressure of society, and not just music society, but society in general, to always, I think this is an American thing more than it's like an Italian thing or a European thing or a French thing, right? It's to always be being productive. And we see rest as unproductive. But rest is where you regroup, where you regain your energy, where if you're breaking down your muscles in the gym, like we said, this is where they grow. If you're practicing, this is where your brain has to have time to assimilate. When we rest, we dream. That's where our brain sorts our thoughts into stuff. We have to have that time, and yet we feel guilty for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel you. I'm in the same spot. Like, we're not alone here. I mean, as musicians, I think we're kind of wired that way to be productive and maximize every second. And we see hobbies as like a luxury instead of a necessity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we could go down the rabbit hole with that, but I don't want to go on a negative tangent there. So, I'm really glad you brought that to the forefront though, because like I said, I've heard so many musicians say, I just didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so I've just been practicing, and they're 2 years later, they're still like, I've just been sitting in my apartment practicing. Like, oh my gosh. Like,
yeah, for me, I had to just kind of divert my attention to something else. Which, it's not ideal, but that's the only thing that kind of got me out of the, I need to be practicing all the time mindset. So I love learning, and like, that's how I spend a lot of my time, honestly, just like learning about new things. So, that was like kind of when I really started diving into all the performing arts medicine research and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it. So that was how I directed my attention, but
is that why you decided to pursue an MBA?
Partially. I also picked up a lot of freelance music admin work, and I had always kind of worked in music administration. Found that my undergrad had a 1-year program, and it was kind of something I had been considering for a while. So I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I don't regret it. It's been great. It's been intense, but it's been great. So yeah.
Nice. So I'm curious on the whole MBA thing. What kind of like, where are you trying to go with that? And I don't know, do you have any advice for any musicians that are thinking about pursuing that kind of thing and feeling like they might be selling out on their music degree to pursue a business degree?
Yeah, well, I've experienced a lot of those thoughts. Ultimately, it comes down to just having a sense of confidence that like, no matter what you do, no one can take away your musicianship and you being an artist, and like your background, how many years you've put into practicing, no one can take that away from you. And it can feel like that sometimes. But also just to know that there are so many people right now that are facing this dilemma of really like, being trained to either perform in an orchestra or teach full time. And there's just like the jobs are so limited, especially now when things are still a little bit more uncertain. They're opening up again for sure, but there aren't as many. And they're kind of unpredictable as well.
In the traditional sense, for sure.
In the traditional sense, exactly. So I think a lot of people are having to kind of pivot and go in different directions. And so just knowing that you're not alone in doing that, and knowing that like most of us are feeling the same emotions, even friends that I've talked to that are still full-time pursuing orchestral careers have been questioning it. And I've talked with them about it, and they were like, yeah, I just really like, I don't know, I feel like I need to like, I want to do something different. So everyone's kind of going through the same thing. I think it's important to know that. But for me, the MBA was appealing because I did a minor in entrepreneurship, plus the work that I was kind of picking up, I was really enjoying. So I just wanted to enter that program to refine my skill set. And there's many other business programs you can do. There's like online courses you can take too. You don't have to do a full program if that's not something you're able to do. There's lots of great online courses for just like generating business skills, things like that. So for me, I wanted to learn more about honestly like money and like finance, because I just didn't know anything. And also there were a couple of research courses and statistics courses. So that was really appealing to me in the program, because I'm thinking I might want to go down more towards the research route in the future, and refining those skills has been helpful. So I'm a research assistant with the Center for Arts and Medicine right now at the University of Florida. I'm just doing like a 1 semester like assistant position. It's remote. Obviously, I haven't been flying to Florida every week. That'd be a little intense. In Ohio. So yeah. But that's been like really great. And I've been able to use the skills that I learned in my statistics class to apply to that. So for me, it was a good fit. But I think just finding your niche was something that took me a while. And everyone has a different interest. And there's obviously no shame if you still want to pursue an orchestral job or a teaching job full time, and just know that like there are still opportunities to do that, but also knowing that there's also no shame in the meantime, working in a different field, even working a non-music job. You know, I'm applying to several jobs right now. Half of them are non-music, and that's okay. But it took me a long time to realize that. So I think just finding like what makes you really passionate, even if it's outside of music, you could find a way to combine those passions, or just kind of embracing studying something else for a little bit and getting experience in a different field, because that can only help you in the long run. So I think it's really common for all of us right now to be experimenting with different fields, different jobs, and just kind of trying to figure things out, because no one really knows what's going on.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a beautiful blessing of COVID, is that it allowed us the freedom and the ability, like it allowed us to pivot to whatever, because we were kind of all forced to do something different. And so anything went. And it's kind of a beautiful thing if you look at it that way.
It is. I found a lot of silver linings for as much, pain and stress this has been. There's definitely silver linings that I found. Yeah.
Absolutely. Jen, do you have any other thoughts?
No, I mean, I hate to be like that, but no, I mean, I think we covered a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah.
And you've hit on so many things, Francesca, that we've been talking about in some fashion or another for a long time now, and it's so good to get those, confirmations, or like, just reiterations from a place of just positivity and success. Because I mean, it sounds like you're being quite successful with your injury and your performance and your, let's call it quote secondary area, but like the business stuff. It's not really a secondary area, but I don't know what else to call it.
Her career path is taking off in a new way.
Yeah, that's right.
Going well.
Your new branch.
Yeah.
you.
It's refreshing to hear that. And like she said, I mean, there's so many things you hit on, like you just said thing after thing after. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're hearing this over and over. And you just hear this theme throughout our podcast.
Yeah.
And we're not bringing it up. It's other people are bringing it up. It's like, like hearing that people are afraid that their injury is going to make them have to quit and they're in graduate school. Oh my gosh, like this should not be a thing.
Yeah.
And so it just these things. So is there anything that you want to talk about that you're doing that you want to push out? Like if anybody wants to contact you and get more in touch with you, or any offerings that you have or anything?
Sure. So on my Instagram at Playing Without Pain, I've been offering worry group meetings where we kind of just all gather over Zoom and talk about things that have been stressing us out or making us anxious. So I was running those monthly, but we've dropped down to kind of like every other month. So I post about upcoming meetings. Those are always free to join. We usually, like, if anyone wants to donate, we usually pick a different charity every week, meet for like an hour and a half. So that's something that I offer through my Instagram that you can sign up, also through my Facebook page. I'm presenting at the MTNA conference coming up on March 28th with my colleague Laura Amoriello. She teaches piano at Ithaca right now, and we're talking about navigating difficult emotions in the music studio. So ways to handle when a student comes into a lesson and is very highly activated, very distressed, things like that I've definitely experienced, not only as a student, but from a teacher standpoint. I think it can kind of take us teachers by shock sometimes. So we're doing a presentation on some techniques and tools that you can have in your toolkit to equip you to handle those situations, and resources as well. So that's at the MTNA conference coming up. But other than that, just looking forward to graduating in August.
Yeah. When do you graduate?
August. Yeah.
Around NFA.
Yeah, I'll be an NFA. Yep. So I'll see you
we
there.
Can celebrate.
Yes.
Finally in person again. It's funny. So I started as chair in Orlando 4 years ago.
And you haven't been.
And I haven't. No. So we did Salt Lake City the next year. Like that's when I was officially whatever. My first was at Salt Lake the next year, and then COVID has taken the last 2 years, which we haven't done. I said we didn't jack. We're supposed to go to Dallas, and like everything just got kind of this big mishmash of weirdness. And I like, okay, now we're back to normal. This is my last year.
I know.
I'm kind of peeved.
I would be too. Yeah.
I asked for another year and I never heard a response. So that's my answer, I guess. Whatever. It's okay. I can use a break. It's fine. But so where can people find you if they want to know more about Francesca Leo and Playing Without Pain?
Yeah. So you can visit my website, playingwithoutpain.com, that houses all of my research findings, my presentation recordings, other people's presentation recordings. Angela's stuff is on there. Jen would love to put your stuff on there, so I'll connect with you on that. But yeah, it's just kind of a resource database where you can find a bunch of things of professionals in the field. My website, Francesca Leo Flute, says a little bit more about me, francescaleoflute.com. Then you can follow my Instagram, Playing Without Pain. Friend me on Facebook, like my Facebook page. Yeah, that's about it.
Beautiful. Francesca, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a wonderful conversation. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. And you guys, please go follow her, find her, like her, follow her. And if you enjoyed our podcast, please give us a like, review, and subscribe.
Absolutely.
And share with somebody else. Right? And have a great day.
All right. Thanks.